For our current events, I found an article on ESPN about NCAA clears way for athletes to profit for names, images, and likeness. In other words, it means that college athletes are now able to get paid in a manner consistent with the collegiate model, and they're figuring now some ways out for all three divisions, Division 1, 2, 3. And here it just says that those rules should be, or they're making sure that those rules are transparent, focused, and enforceable. And in my opinion, it just ties into this class because there was always those things or this news where you've heard someone just got paid underneath the table, and now it's finally legal, or it's going to be legal, which helps a lot. Just also players who can't really afford being on a team, now they can get paid, and it's just easy for them as well on an official way instead of underneath the table, I guess.
Okay, so for mine, I'm talking about the New York Jets, and they made sort of a remark. So it says, Jets Jamal Adams says GM Joe Douglas went behind his back. So the player Jamal Adams, he politely asked the GM and the head coach that he wanted to stay in New York. He wanted to play for the Jets, but yet again, the GM went behind his back and started offering him to teams. So started negotiating with other teams, which is not what he wanted. So he kind of didn't listen to one of the players, how he politely asked to he wanted to stay, but he kind of didn't listen to it. Even though the GM said that there was no offers, that there was nothing put on the table, there's nothing about talking about money, it's just negotiations. Yet Adams tweeted, "Any reports of me asking to be traded from the New York Jets are completely false." And then he tweeted again, "At the end of last week, I sat down with the GM and Coach Jace and told them I want to be here in New York. I was told yesterday by my agent that the GM then went behind my back and showed me around to teams, even after I asked them to keep me here. Crazy business." So as you can see, it ties into the class because you see a player who's been in the team and shows a desire to be on the team, and now he is talked about in negotiations with other teams. So the GM doesn't really care, and it's just something that's kind of unethical, where it brings a player's desire and it goes out the window. So the GM is just working on, of course they have to think about the best of the team, but they also have a player who is politely asking about his own feelings. It's still underway, but he did say that we were not shopping any of those players. They were just plans in the future for first round picks for next year or different draft picks. And that is my current events. So now we'll move on to Lux. Chapter 9, and you'll start.
Yeah, here he talks about, as the title mentions as well, coming clean. He basically got clean and went public in an article of Sports Illustrated where he named 30 former college players who took money or accepted improper benefits from him. He then named a lot of responses from different players. Here are just a few of them. Greg Townsend confirmed the details of his relationship with Lux. Jameer Miller, Tony Banks, and John Rushing declined to comment. Fallon Pound said Lux was a good guy but declined to comment as to whether he took money or not. And Rob Waldrop denied that Lux paid him. He recalled that he had lunch with Lux and that Lux offered to pay a friend in an effort to get to Waldrop, but he said that he did not accept any money. As you can see, some declined it, some agreed, and some just tried to find a way around it without even having a statement on it. And then he also mentioned, since he went public with how the sports business really works, he's gone from being just another agent doing what an agent is doing to a whistleblower, a double agent, and an expert on the dark side. That's how he calls it. Since then, he has been basically on countless radio and TV shows, and as a rule breaker, he has been asked to serve on or speak at numerous sports law conferences, interestingly on the subject of ethics. That's what I've been talking about the whole semester in this book. And Josh also assisted in some high-profile investigation on ESPN.com. He ran an associated press story where they stated that the NCAA is taking the approach to weeding out rogue agents, and they have been gathering information from former agent Josh Lux, from him. He then furthermore speaks at the University of Oregon School of Law in Oregon. He also shared the days with another agent at the University of Texas Law School in Austin, and they have promoted, among other things, with Lux will discuss his experience paying players in the hope of signing them as clients and violating NCAA ethics rules. And this was his first time where he has done a lecture rather than just field questions.
So the rest of the chapter, it goes into talking about current situations of the agents and the agent's aspect in an athlete's life. He goes in depth about certain agents in the world, about New York, about amateurism, accountability, legal and ethical questions arising from the relationships between lawyers and agents and amateur players seeking their representation. So basically about agents going to NCAA schools, Division I schools, and talking to players. He then talks about certain meetings that he's been having even during the NFL draft with certain players. He talks about, I continue to do sports and law panels, even speaking at the Yeshiva University, coming full circle from paying a player with my bar mitzvah money. After that appearance, this ran on a multi-law school blog. So the blog says, yes, the Josh Lux will be lecturing at New York Law School in April between. Do not miss out on a great opportunity to hear about the realities of the sports industry and how Mr. Lux hopes to change it. So he did have a certain way of wanting to change how it was going, about certain agents paying players, playing certain young adults to go to a certain university because of then have their future going into the NFL draft. He then talks about how different interviews that he was having in Philadelphia, how he had an interview with Mike and Carey on Fox, and there were some people that were crossing the line, and they started saying their certain remarks that were not supposed to be on the script. He then, like I said, he then talks about the NFL draft and how it's a big opportunity, but certain players, and he highlights that it's an area where it's supposed to be protected by student athletes and also, but it turns into a place for agents to kind of steal other players from other agents and kind of have this ongoing, back and forth fight for players. He moves on and talks about Carmen Truchenich, city attorney of Los Angeles, who testified that currently agents have absolutely no fear of being prosecuted under law, that they would, if De Leon's agent bill were enacted. So if you're a sports agent, he said, understand the cavalry has mounted. So if you're a sports agent, they said in the book that it's different. It's not an aspect of just doing the job, but it's an aspect of like trying to get the best out of it and get the best out of a player, which then sometimes can be good, sometimes can be bad. So in these situations in the book that they said, it's mostly towards the bad side that they've been going. It's 213. Yeah, it's 213. So he then talks about the gambling and the amateurism, like I said. He talks about a certain panel of the NAAC, which is the National Association of Athletic Compliance, which was a convention in Orlando, and he was on the panel, moderated by a senior associate, John Fagg. Oh, that's his name, Fagg. That's his name on the book. For the athletic director at the University of Arkansas, that he addressed all aspects of regulation, conduct, and enforcement, which were interesting. And he then goes on to schedule a bunch of other panels and a bunch of other more NCAA meetings to help agents, to help certain schools and certain athletic directors with that aspect of paying or trying to get players to the next level. And yeah, that's basically it. Telling the truth, it's basically, he talks in the end of the chapter, or the end of this part, how he says, I found something that turns me on as much as recruiting players is telling the truth about recruiting players. That's really important, and that's what he ends it with. Do you want to go? Okay, I can do my question.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so what is it? Okay, group number one. So much talk about players receiving, payments and even getting asked Nowadays, in today's world, now that players are getting paid, this just brought up to me because of what Angie spoke about the current events. What now that players are be able to get paid, does that change the reality of also getting an agent getting a certain player to that school? Like now that they get paid even while they're at school, now do you think that they would also, the managers or the agents will also give a certain bribery to get the player to that school or get to the player to work with them? That's the question, and why?
And group 3, I was talking about my part. I was talking about he got clean and went public with all the names and everything. And my question is just a general one. Would you have done the same thing, or would you have just retired from this business and just never talk about it? Do you think it was even ethical to do it, since he was one of the cheaters as well, or how do you see all this happening?
So group 4 is group 4.
Yeah.
I think the real question is for group number 4 is, with everything going on, if you're a sports agent and you see all these other agents getting the players that they want, but they're using bribery, would you kind of fall into that also, or would you still try to be, try to be like truthful and try to do the right thing, even though you're not getting the same return? And sometimes people need to make lives meet or ends meet. So some of these agents need to do something. So they need to do, I guess, something bad so they can have a return. Would you fall into that, or would you still do the right thing and just be truthful and see where it goes? And I think that is it for
all right,
3
guys.
questions.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Podcast Giovanni Gomez and Angela Willie. Appreciate listening, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.
Bye.